As I mentioned in one of my quick little community posts, I got a Overdrive transmission. Picked it up from a gentleman up in Maine. So did a quick little speed run up there, grabbed it, brought it back. I have no idea if it works. It turns, obviously it's not seized up. We're going to essentially tear the thing down, take a look at everything, the gears and everything like that, put it all back together. This is an A-type overdrive back here. The serial number on this lines up with the serial number of the overdrive itself is 617. What's it? 12? Yeah, 61712, which aligns with the TR4 series of the A-types. There was modifications as the run went on, improvements and stuff, which is good. I want to get a later one. They're a little easier for parts. The transmission itself has got a commission number of CT69119, it looks like. I don't know, like my car is CT38000-ish. I don't know if I know when they went to the TR4, the prefix went to CTC. They added a C to it, and the TR4As, used the CTC. I don't know if the transmissions changed those or not. At some point, they went to the TR6. I think that was the same design transmission with the bolt patterns and everything. So I'll do a little bit of research and see if I can peg this as far as a year goes. But I think it's a little bit later than the car. It turns. I have no idea otherwise, though, if anything works. So I can put it in all the gears, and it will rotate in all the gears. And it will, first, second, third, fourth, it will rotate in those. When I turn the drive shaft, the rear end turns. No weird noises or anything like that. No, it doesn't feel bad or rough as I run it through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just slowly start to disassemble a little bit of this here. I will take the top off and take a look at the gears. I got the lockout switches here. I got the solenoid here. I don't know if anything works electrically or not, so I'll be testing that. And we'll just kind of pick around a little bit. I'm not going to get too serious yet. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here. But this is going to be a good winter project, as well as the Spitfire differential, which I still have to play with. But let's start breaking into it, see what we can find. First thing we're going to do is take the cap off. All right, so they're all loose. All right, it's going to come right up. Go ahead and start bagging these things up before I lose track here. All right, important to note out here that the two in the back are just a touch longer than the two in the front here. So try to remember that. And there's a little cable clip on there for the overdrive wiring harness here. I'm going to pull that off. All right, so that guy comes right off. No problems there. Set that aside. Let's take a look on the inside, shall we? Not the best camera angle, sorry about that, but got oil in there, so that's a good thing. Looks like there's a little bit of spalling on the gears, but no pits that I can see. Just inspecting everything here. Spin this around real quick and let me take a look, and I'll come back. And you're not going to be able to see, but there's a little bit of stuff on that, like a dirt almost on that guy, but that, when I run it through my finger, it all breaks apart. So at least that tells me it's not metal. Don't see any chips. Gearbox definitely could use to be rotated a little bit more often. Like I said, there is some spalling of the gears, but no, doesn't appear to be any damage. Reverse seems to work just fine. Never very good at figuring out how to shift these things, but it did shift with the gear lever on, so I'm not going to be too worried about it. So everything looks okay. Like I said, there is a good amount of spalling on some of these, but it doesn't look like it's really anything significant to be concerned with. Nothing in the case tells me there's any chips or metal or anything. Looks good in the cluster gear, as much as I can see of it anyway. Yeah, so I think we're okay. So that's good. I'm going to test the switches, the lockout switches on the top there, see if they work. And then we'll check this solenoid and see if that works. All right, so as I mentioned, these switches up here are the lockout switches, and they're permissive. In other words, when you are in a gear where the switch gets actuated, it completes the circuit and allows you to energize the solenoid to allow you the overdrive to kick in. This one here is the first and second. This one here works on third and fourth. And because it's permissive, like I said, as long as that switch is not actuated, so another gear other than second, third, or fourth, the overdrive should not complete the circuit. So there is no switch for reverse because you don't ever want it to actuate in reverse. There's a unidirectional clutch in here, and if it did actuate in reverse and allow that circuit to complete, it would essentially eat the overdrive transmission, which would be horrible. We don't want that. There is one more boss here. That's for a reverse light, not to lock out the overdrive transmission. This is an earlier crank or an earlier transmission that didn't have a reverse light, which again tells me it's TR4 because mine doesn't have one. It was an option. Right now, this is the first and second one. So what happens is you bring over to first, and this pivots on an arm like this, the gear shift lever. So right now there's 3 rails in here, a first and second rail, a third and fourth rail, and a reverse rail. So since the gear shift is closer to you in the camera, that means its bottom is furthest away from you. So it's actuating this rail. So I'm going to put it in first now, and I don't expect this switch to actuate. It should stay in overload condition, which would not allow current to flow, and the circuit would not be completed. So we'll see here. So that's first. We'll roll it, even though rolling it shouldn't have anything to do with it. So that's good. So that tells me that the overdrive would not engage in first, which is what we want. And you can hear that buzz. That's in second. So now that tells me that the overdrive would engage if I had the solenoid on. All right, now I'm going to go into third and fourth. So back into neutral, it goes out. Third, I wouldn't expect it to engage, and it doesn't. Fourth, would not expect it to engage, and it doesn't. And we'll go into reverse here, and I would not expect it to engage, and it doesn't. All right, so that first one, that seems to work. Second gear and second gear only, so that's good. Now we'll swap them here and go to the 3-4 switch. So we'll put it in first. I don't expect to have anything. Second, don't expect to have anything. Now we'll go into third. All right, seems to be kind of intermittent depending on if I'm turning the transmission or not. Yeah, so generally intermittent there. Fourth. Should be working in fourth, and I'm not getting anything generally or not. Give it a little shot here. Nope, nothing. All right, so the overdrive would work kind of sort of in third. Now it's not working at all. But still not reverse, so that's good. So either this switch itself is bad or the detent and the alignment and everything inside it and those rails is bad. I don't know which. Obviously these can come out, so maybe I'll just try to take it out and see what's in there, just to mess around. So let's see what happens. Well, it turns out that I don't have a wrench that will fit that. It's pretty thin, height-wise, so I don't have and it's at least 1.25 inches or so, if not bigger than that. And I don't have a wrench that is that big and that skinny. So that'll be a future me problem. I don't want to break anything that I can repair. They're still stamped Lucas, so I'm not sure that they're original, but at least they're they're relatively good. All right, I was able to go ahead and get these switches out. I just used a pair of Knipex pliers, and they were skinny enough to kind of get in there. I did eat up the fiber washers a little bit, but I'd be replacing them anyway. So I think you can see there's a little ball here, and when that ball gets pressed in, that should close that switch. So we know that one works, and we think that the other one worked intermittently. So let's see. So I should have an open now when I press the ball. I should have a short, and I do on this one. And this other guy here, when I do the same thing, I'm getting nothing. All right, and I got good electrical continuity there, so it tells me that that little detent in there, for whatever reason, doesn't work anymore. So we'll have to get a new one of these, and that'll do that. Going to see if the solenoid works, and it's just a simple electrical solenoid, 12 volts, I assume, since that's what the electrical system is. So we'll just find a solid ground here, plug that into the solenoid here, and hit the output of my power supply. And that should work, but it's not. And I'm directly powering it, so you don't have to worry about any interlocks or anything like that. So either the solenoid's shot or it's jammed up or something like that, but it wiggles around down here, but I can't I can't push it up. All right, so we'll take it off, see if I can't free it up or something like that. Who knows what's in here? This rubber piece of rubber coating here is all dry and cracked and brittle. Maybe stuff got down in there and mucked it all up. So, or maybe I'm just not doing it right. But anyway, we'll take it off here and play with it, see if I can't get it to work. Yeah, so this thing is essentially rusted in here, seized. So we'll, I mean, I'm going to play with it, but the rubber boot that goes on the bottom of this was all corroded and is gone. And like I said, the top one is essentially gone. Whether or not that's going to interfere with proper operation, I'm not too sure, but I probably will be looking at getting a new one of these. But it's always fun to try to make stuff work. Little actuating arm slips right off. All right, so let's play around with this, see if I can get it to break free, loosen it up, get this rubber boot off of here, and just see what it looks like. Just a standard solenoid, not much to it. Yeah, unfortunately, this solenoid is shot. You can see all the rust and everything that's in there, and just totally seized up. Not worth trying to save. You can get these, obviously, so that's a good thing. But I tried, but no luck. This is seized in there. I was able to knock it in, but it's pretty worthless. So we'll go ahead and button that back up and get rid of that. So now we're looking at going to take this plate off here. There's a big old spring behind here that kind of holds everything in. So before you take that thing off, you got to drain the oil. Important safety tip. May or may not have learned that the hard way. So you got the oil drain down here from the regular drain where the transmission, you know, if you didn't have the overdrive. And then the overdrive under here, which I know is hard to see, a big, huge brass cap, probably 2 or 3 inches in diameter that's notched. Use a pair of a C-plier, which I don't have. So I'm going to try to get away with just using a punch into one of those things, but got to drain the oil out or else it makes a mess. Unfortunately, there's some water in there. That's not cool. All right, well, water's not a good sign. We'll go ahead and see if we can knock this big brass cap open. Just going to use a punch into one of those notches. Then in here, you've got a filter. Pretty heavy duty mesh filter, and I believe there's also several magnets like a washer that will pick up any chunks, so we'll be able to see here if we're going to have any problems, I guess. All right, didn't really appear to be any oil on there, or excuse me, any water there. All right, I got that soaking in some purple power. We're going to go ahead and try to get this thing off now that it's probably safe to do so. Like I said, I think there's a big spring behind here. Though I think as you loosen this up, it loses tension. I don't expect this thing to go shooting out at me. At least hopefully not. Now that is a spring. Holy cow. There's an inner spring. Looks all right. Looks like the spacing is all about the same. And here's this monster. That is impressive. So this overdrive operates at something like 400 pounds of pressure, something crazy like that. So that's why that thing is as serious as it is. Sorry about the shadow here. The next thing is going to be to get this speedometer cable, the actuator off. So there's a out of the end shaft, there's a geared portion of that, and this is just a fitting that goes in. So this 1/2-inch bolt here has got to be removed, and then you get an old speedometer cable and a flathead screwdriver, at least you hope, and kind of pry this thing out. So I'm not too sure how it's going to roll for me here, but there is a special tool, of course. But this is how it's. I don't know if I'd say recommended, but this is how it can work. So I. Going to try to set the camera up here. Obviously the angle's bad, so I'll try to figure something out without making you motion sick. So this is just a little lock bolt, kind of. A little pin on the end of it. So now we'll take the screwdriver and a piece of wood here. You want to pry it against the the screw of the speedometer cable so that you don't damage the threads. So I've got it screwed all the way down so you don't damage the threads of the pinion here. Yep, and you can also do it right there. I like that better. That's easier. I guess now you can grab the cable and slide it out. Got to take the cable off, it's interfering. That groove right there, hopefully that you can see now, I just kind of put the screwdriver in that and just slowly pushed it out. This looks like brass or something, so you don't want to be too aggressive with it, but it came right out. All right, just a little gear on the end of that, and that's what spins, drives the speedometer, so you know how fast you're going. Next up, what I want to do is remove the rear casing. So I've got to shift the transmission, obviously, because I got to get it. That's what it's being supported by right now. So I just need to shift these blocks up a little bit. I am kind of following a procedure here. This is a Buckeye Triumph. Came out with a pretty nice setup with pictures and all sorts of kind of stuff. So I just printed this out, and I'm just kind of following this along. So I'm following his basic path for the way that he disassembled his gearbox. So that's what I'm doing here. His was a different series than mine was, but essentially I think it's all going to be about the same. So I'll just move this block over here, get this thing situated again so I can now start doing these bolts. All right, so there's several bolts here, 6 of them I believe, 1, 2, and 3, and essentially around the other side you got 3 more. And there should not be any major spring pressure here. That's on the center portion where you're going to have some spring pressure to worry about. So this should essentially come off without much problem here. These are 1/2 inch, it looks like. And I have no idea if this transmission's been apart before. So far, it doesn't seem that way. Now that bolt wasn't very tight. I am going to kind of loosen everything here without removing it, just in case I don't know what I'm getting myself into and there is some spring tension in here. That way at least the bolts will kind of help me take that up. All right, so these bolts at the top here are becoming rather painful to get this wrench in here. Not enough relief to get a closed end in, and not enough relief to even get a boxed end in. Interesting. Let me see what I can come up with. So work smarter, not harder. Take this top cover off. All sorts of access now. All right, so all those 6 of those bolts are loose, but it's not breaking free. So I'm just going to take a little drift punch, kind of smack the bolts here. I don't want to smack on the aluminum case because it is aluminum. I don't want to crack it, obviously. So we'll see if I can't get this thing to break free. Not playing. All right, well, again, we'll see what I can figure out. Hold on. All right, it's starting to come now. This is a steel transition piece here. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the punch and I'm just tapping on that to try kind of break it free, and I can see that it's starting to separate a little bit. So I don't think it's under any tension here. If it is, it's not a lot, but I'll just keep going back and forth and around and make sure I try to knock it evenly here, and we'll see if we can't get this thing off of here. Button that back up, got it snugged up. What I'm going to try to do is split the overdrive here now at the back of the gearbox instead of at the aft end unit here. Notice this stud is really long as compared to these other two. This is under a pretty good amount of spring tension. So what you do is you take these 4, there's 2 of the short ones on this side, 2 on the other, so take those out and then slowly loosen these, and the spring should split the case for you. So I'm going to give that a try, and if that doesn't start to feel right or feels like I'm taking some chances there, then I'm just going to stop. The first time Lynn took his overdrive transmission apart several years ago, I was watching those videos when I knew I was going to get this. He didn't realize that, and the thing popped on him, and thankfully stuff didn't go flying or anything, but you know, you saw that spring I took out of this accumulator pump. I mean, this stuff is no joke, so I don't want to cause any damage or to myself or to the overdrive. So we're going to see here what we can do. All right, so you might be able to see that's already coming apart for me. Well, I'm glad I noticed that. So on the other side, the whole stud started backing out on me instead of just the nut. So obviously don't want that to happen because that kind of defeats the purpose. We'll see here if we can't get that fixed and try that, get get that stud to stop turning. That'll be unfortunate. Back in business, all I did was take a double nut on the other side and kind of hold them and hold the stud tight while I loosened the bolt. This one is fine. All right, and all I'm doing is kind of loosen it until I feel that get loose, because that tells me that the tension is being taken up on the other side, and then switching sides and just back and forth. And I assume the idea here is that those studs are long enough that they'll totally allow the springs to detension, and that you can just slide it apart at that point. So I have a feeling when this thing lets go, it's just going to drop. I don't want that to happen. So come up with a better solution. All right, all my spring tension should be loose now. The trick is going to be getting these separated without hurting anything, because I got to lift the gearbox down onto this wooden block and get this guy out. So take these nuts the rest of the way off. All right, I'm going to get in your way here, so it's definitely not the best way to do this. So you got that main shaft here. I don't know how much more I got in there, but all right. There's all that. Got some weight to it. Main shaft looks nice and clean back here. So as you'd expect, there's some corrosion in here, but it's mostly gunk, not really corrosion. And the springs, got 8 springs, two different sizes of them. What you want to do for these things is just kind of look at them and see that the coils are about the same distance in between all of the wraps. Make sure it's not indicative. Yeah, see that one's really gunky. Not indicative that they are worn out at one end or not. So now that we got the overdrive separated from the transmission, we're going to stop here. The video is getting a little long, and the next one we'll start taking the internals apart, doing some inspections, checking stuff out and all that good stuff, and continue to move down the path. So thanks again for watching, liking, comment, and subscribing. As always, I appreciate it. And you guys have a good rest of your day. Thanks again. Cheers.